Well, welcome back to Letters of Intent. My name is Pankaj Raval, founder of Carbon Law Group. I am joined today by my trusted co-host, Sahil Chaudry. Sahil, how are you?
I'm doing great. This is Sahil Chaudry here, corporate attorney here at Carbon Law Group. And today we are talking about something that we deal with very often, S-Corps. We are big advocates of S-Corps when you are launching your company. There are plenty of tax benefits, but there are plenty of limitations as well. And we're going to get into why you might need to convert or why you might need to do what's called an F-Reorg.
So let's just imagine this, right? So let's set this up, right? Let's set the scene of why we're talking about this today. Some of you guys, it may not be as sexy as a topic as what you might hear on another podcast about Call Me Daddy, but this is not that. But it is, if you're a business owner, if you're a serious business owner, if you're a serious entrepreneur, this is very important for you to listen to. And we're going to try to synthesize a lot of complex issues in about 15 to 20 minutes to hopefully help you make a much more informed decision and not lose millions of dollars when you sell your company. So imagine this, your business is doing great. Your investors are interested, super excited to invest. And then your lawyer says, hold on, we've got a problem. You're an S-Corp. What do we do, Sal?
This is not Call Me Daddy. This is Call Your Lawyer. That's the segment
Yes.
we're at right now. When you hit this
Or
point,
call your daddy, call your lawyer daddy if you want. Hell, we don't care.
yeah, right. So this happens very often. I mean, we do this so often where someone is a brilliant entrepreneur, has got an amazing product or service, they're growing, and now they've got interest from a venture capital firm or from an angel investor. Now, most likely that investment is going to come from a company. In an S Corp, you can't take investment from a company. In fact, you can only have individual investors. You can only have up to 100 shareholders, and you cannot have any non-US persons invest in that S Corp. So it's great when you're privately held, you've got a cash flowing business, but when you start to open up to new investors, you're going to have to make some changes. And we see this all the time where people are ready to raise capital. They've got a term sheet. They're right near that opening mark of let's draft the documents. And then everybody realizes, and that's when they call us. First of all, we need to convert. And second of all, we don't have enough shares that have been authorized in this company. We haven't accounted for the headroom that's going to be required to make this work. So that's where, when you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking about future investors, venture capital, institutional money, exit planning, and also QSBS benefits, that's the point you need to call us because you're going to need to convert from an S Corp to a C.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is critical. We're talking about millions of dollars at stake here when you sell this company. So structuring it correctly now when you're early stage is very, very important. And it's not just, yeah.
Pankaj, I can imagine some of our clients will be like, hey, Pankaj and Sahil, you guys told me to start with an S Corp. Why are you telling me now to go with a C Corp? So I think we should talk through a few of the major benefits of an S Corp. Why do we
Yeah.
suggest it in the first place? There's pass-through taxation. So you are avoiding double taxation in a C Corp. Your profits are going to be taxed before you're able to authorize any dividends. Payroll tax planning, the simplicity for owner-operated businesses. There are plenty of benefits, and these are great, especially if you have a professional services firm, for medical practices, agencies, consultants, closely held family businesses. But eventually, you're going to evolve. And so, Pankaj, why don't investors like S Corp?
So S corps are a bit messy when it comes to like anything with pass-through taxation. This is why also we don't suggest like a legal tech startup go into an LLC, taxed as a partnership, or these private equity firms, venture capital firms don't like pass-through taxation. And there's a variety of reasons for that. But one of them is it makes things messier for them if they have to deal with a bunch of K1s and things like that. So it's better that they have shares in a company. And there's also certain protections that they like to get, especially in Delaware, as shareholders compared to owners of an LLC or shares in an S Corp.
Yeah, that's right. You can't have multiple classes of shares either in an S Corp. So in an S Corp,
Right.
you would break let's say you have a venture capital firm that wants preferred shares, S Corp status is blown up. So
Yeah.
you can't have
Yeah.
preferred stock, you can't have liquidation preferences, you can't have convertible securities. It's very hard
Yeah.
to do safes or warrants. It's very difficult to plan for, let's say, an equity incentive plan. If you want to have different types of rights, go to the equity incentive plan. So
Right.
it's very tough. A lot of VCs are, like you just said, are going to want some kind of preferences, some kind of difference from the common shares.
Yeah. And I think fundamentally, if you're like starting a company, you got to think about like what's important to you right now, right? And also not only right now, but what's important to you in the future, right? Because like we have companies starting, hey, I just want to get this going. I expect to make a good amount of money. They're throwing off a lot of cash. So, hey, maybe S Corp is good. But then they think about it, oh, wait, maybe I do want to sell this. Maybe I want to actually this could be really great. This could be a company that have really strong enterprise value. And that's what's happened with some of our clients, where it started off as a kind of very strong, solid cash flowing business, but all of a sudden then turned into something more and bigger. And that's where we talk about the F-Reorg, which is a good problem to have, but also important to address early on, because one of the main drivers is also converting to C-Corp is you're getting investors, but also something called QSBS, right? We've talked about QSBS a little bit on the podcast, but it's really important for anyone in the startup world, in the tech world, because it's a unique element of the code that allows you to have shares in a C Corp. And when you sell, if you hold them for 5 years, now all of a sudden you can sell them without having to pay any kind of capital gains tax, which could be huge, right? It could be a huge windfall for you if you do it right. So if you structure your company right and can take advantage of QSBS, now I think the first 15 million is going to be tax free or 10x whatever the value of your shares were. So it's a greater of those two. So
Right.
it could be really advantageous.
Yeah, you're talking about excluding up to $15 million in what would have been taxable gains. And also, the government has also raised the asset limit that you can have at issuance from 50 million to $75 million. And I just want to emphasize that this is from the date of the C Corp being formed. So even if you've been in business for 10 years, if that has been an S Corp for 10 years, clock doesn't start yet. And you need to hold as a C Corp shareholder for 5 years. Now, there's a tiered system where you can start excluding gains beginning on your third year. And there's a tiered system, third year, fourth year, fifth year. But to keep things simple, you need to hold for 5 years if you want 100% of those exclusions to apply to you.
Yes, exactly. So very good point. Very good qualification to make, Sahil. So let's jump in a little bit to the F reorg. So
Oh,
explain to us, it's a complicated topic, but let's talk about it. You're very good about simplifying these things. So what is an F reorg and how does it work exactly?
okay. So to try to keep this simple, the F reorg is where now what we just explained is that an S Corp cannot take on investors that are not individual US persons. But a C corp can. And an S corp is it's a corporation, it's a company. And so a corporation can take on corporate or company investors. So that C corp is going to we're going to form a new C corp and that S corp is going to own 100% of the shares of the C corp. And that allows for that C corp to issue shares and the point these shares are issued, we're able to capture QSBS for the pre-existing investors and for the new investors who will invest in the C corp. So, to put it simply, an F reorg is where the S corp owns a newly formed C corp, which becomes the vehicle that you use to raise investment and capture QSBS.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great explanation and I think super helpful. Obviously, every company is a little bit different. So we're not going to bore you guys with all the nuances here today on this podcast, especially if some of you guys are driving. So we don't want to create any kind of health hazards. But the concept is extremely important and something everyone should know about if you're an S Corp or contemplating creating an S Corp, because this is the mechanics. These are the ways that you can actually now benefit from converting to a QSBS, but doing it right is extremely important, right? And if you make a misstep here, this is not something you're going to do online or we're going to ask AI to do, because if you make a mistake, now you're going to be jeopardizing millions and millions of dollars for your
That's
company.
right. Absolutely. And we do see this all the time where companies kind of, I mean, we know what it's like to be a small business owner. You are most of the time, it's a person who has discovered something extremely valuable to the marketplace. They're an excellent entrepreneur, but you don't think about the administrative side or you don't have time for it. Most of the time, our clients are not even aware of what were the initial authorized shares, what were the initial issued shares, or even if they did issue the shares. And so there's a whole level of corporate cleanup that generally has to happen before you take on outside investment. And we don't expect you to know that or to understand it. That's our job. But the reason we are talking about this on this podcast today is you need to know that that is going to be a precursor step to use raising capital or to you capturing QSBS. If you want to do either of those things, you're going to either do an F reorg or convert to a C corp. So While pass through is great, gives you a lot of benefits when you're small, there is a reason to pay that cost of the double taxation for a C Corp. There are important reasons that that exists.
Absolutely. So, Sahil, one last thing I want to talk about is like who should be thinking about this, right? I think it's a big question. Who should be thinking about this right now? We've talked a little bit about people who are S corps, but I would say like there's probably a few different categories of people who should be thinking about this. Can you walk us through like who should be thinking about this right now?
Absolutely. I don't think that this will usually apply to a professional services company because you're not
Right.
going to be raising,
Eligible for QSBS.
yeah, you're not going to be
Well, you're not going to
eligible.
be eligible for QSBS, so yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to be eligible for QSBS. And also, if you are raising capital, you're going to be raising capital in a different company because usually, as a professional, let's say as an attorney or a doctor, you're not going to be able to raise capital in your professional corporation. Now, the other people who I think would not be thinking about this, if you're planning on staying closely held and you're not planning on raising outside capital, then you're better off staying as an S Corp and capturing that pass through taxation. If you are, let's say, a software company, or you are a company that's planning on scaling and you're planning on scaling your medical device company and you're planning on scaling by raising outside capital, absolutely this is for you. If you are any kind of company that is, I think if we had to simplify it, if you are a company that is planning on having an exit or you're planning on raising outside money,
The last makes like 5 to 10 years, right? I mean, you want to think about like a longer term horizon, but
exactly,
yeah.
then
Yeah.
you need to be thinking about this.
So, Sahil, we talked a little bit about like who should be thinking about this, but like what are some different categories of people that really should be considering this right now?
Well, okay. So the companies that should be considering this, number one, companies that are planning to raise outside capital. Number two, founders that are expecting substantial growth. Number three, businesses that may be acquired within 5 to 10 years. Number four, companies that are considering offering safes, convertible notes, or venture financing. And I would also say companies that are planning on issuing multiple classes of shares or who need multiple classes of shares. But there are some businesses that don't need to think about this. One, the first are family owned businesses that are usually closely held, family owned. They're not looking to get outside capital. Number two, lifestyle businesses. Let's say you own, it's in a similar category. You're talking about a chain of laundromats. You're talking about cash flowing businesses that are going to remain small, that are not going to take on outside capital, small professional practices. And the thread that unites all of these companies together is these are privately held, limited ownership, cash flowing companies. Those are the groups that are going to benefit most from pass through taxation, and they don't need outside capital. So there's not a need to convert to an C Corp, and it wouldn't be beneficial.
So, maybe we can just sum this up into a few takeaways, right? First thing I think I'm hearing is that your entity choice is a strategic decision, not just a tax filing. You should be really thinking about this early on. So the second thing is raising money may require restructuring long before investors write checks. So you want to make sure if you're getting a check from an investor, make sure you're structured correctly and you don't blow your S election by accepting a check. What's the saying? Accepting a check you can't cash, right? So you don't want to do that.
Right. That's right.
The next thing is, QSBS can be worth millions, but only if you plan early. So structuring QSBS correctly and going through that whole process and analysis is really important, especially if you're planning for high growth. And then the closing is founders spend a lot of time thinking about how product sales, marketing work, but sometimes the most valuable decision isn't what you're building, it's how you structure the company that you're building.
And founders, you don't really need to know all of the details, but you do need to know that when you're an S Corp, you're not able to sell shares to outside capital when that outside capital is in the form of a company or a corporation, which is what most venture capital firms are. That's like selling pieces of the Taj Mahal. You just can't do it. It doesn't exist. So remember to convert to a C Corp or do an F-Reorg, and that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. So yeah, we hope you guys have found this helpful, insightful. It's really important information. We hope we didn't bore you, but I think if you're a business owner, if you're a small business owner, this is very important for you to understand and keep in the back of your mind as you grow your business. Well, until next time, we thank you guys again for listening, liking, commenting, sharing, and supporting this podcast. If there's anything you want to hear about or any comments you have about what we said, please reach out. We always love to hear from our listeners and make sure that we are providing valuable advice for everyone here. With that being said, this is also not legal advice. This is more educational information that we are sharing. We are lawyers, but not your lawyer. If you do want us to engage us, we do need an engagement letter in place, but we would love to help you. If you're a business owner looking to scale, grow, and potentially sell your business, we're always here for you. Sahil, thank you again. Great episode. Appreciate your insights.
Yes. Until next time, keep on taking risks, keep on making your deals. This is Carbon Law Group, Letters of Intent.